Hi and welcome to AskSCW here on SCW on YouTube, or you could be listening on podcast form. Thank you for choosing the channel, choosing the video on podcast. Please subscribe, follow right now. Please leave any comments in the comment section and like and share the video as well. It's time to have your say. It's time for the Q&A, answering your questions in the wrestling community. Going to be talking about WWE, NXT, Impact Wrestling, and much more on this particular video. Headlining with the huge news of WrestleMania. Of course, we'll be kicking off the show here, so make sure to stick around. Plenty of great topics coming up on today's show. If you want to leave a question in for here on SCW, then make sure to drop a comment on YouTube in the comment section, or you can follow me on social media on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, all coming up on your screen right about now. I'll leave the details if you're listening on podcast form. But just before we start off with today's questions, quick shout out to Wrestling Customs 24/7. Go and check out the website and follow them on social media, doing custom-made championships with all your favourite promotions. They've even got Valentine's Day cards as well, so make sure to go and check out Wrestling Customs 24/7. But without further ado, let's get straight into our first question this week. We're going to kick things off with Dan the Man Williams, Mr. DWE. And he asks, do you think fans will be back following the huge news that WrestleMania will be at the same venue as WrestleMania 36 with the same theme? It's amazing news what's come out, of course. We know now for the next 3 WrestleManias, of course, starting off with this one. Like you say, it's going to be back at Tampa Bay, the Buccaneer Stadium, which, of course, is a venue that would hold 65,000 regularly. Of course, I don't think we're going to get to that. But apparently Tampa Bay, who have been playing NFL right now, have managed to have 14,000 fans around that in attendance for their games. So WrestleMania, once again this year, great news, is going to be a 2-night event now on April the 10th and April the 11th, instead of course what was originally meant to be March 28th. With a bit of luck, hopefully if things are the same with the situation as they are right now in America, if they are able to keep it the same, hopefully they'll be able to have over the 2 nights 28,000 fans in attendance. And of course, I think right now that would be very welcome for everyone in retrospect with WWE, the company themselves, of course, being able to have 14,000 fans per night, and the fact that us fans at home watching will be actually able to see some fans in attendance, some real noise, real passion. Everyone, of course, will be hopefully very well socially distanced in and amongst that stadium. Of course, AEW in Daily's place are able to have probably have a few hundred to 1,000 fans a week at the moment, so they're able to have people on a consistent basis on a weekly basis. WWE have had the setup of the Thunderdome, so that's one of the reasons they've not done it. There was rumours they wanted to do something for the Royal Rumble, but a lot of effort to take things down at the Thunderdome to put it back up a night later just seemed a bit too much work. So I can understand why they've not done it with the Rumble. But with WrestleMania in this big stadium, it's an outdoor stadium as well, open top. So you would think it should be okay to have some fans back in attendance. Before having full stadiums, we're probably looking at maybe next year's WrestleMania and the year after. It's good to know we already have the information for both of those. Of course, Hollywood now is going to be in 2 years' time. That's going to be, I believe now, that will be WrestleMania 39. It's crazy to think that far ahead. WrestleMania 38, which will be next year, will be taking place at the AT&T Stadium, which I believe is in Texas, if I'm not mistaken, was the home venue for WrestleMania 32. And if that was the case, then WrestleMania that year was the largest attendance in history. So if it is possible to have WrestleMania with a full stadium this time next year, you can see WWE's thinking they will be going all out in the biggest attendance that they can do possible. They'll probably look at it of wanting to break attendance records. Of course, we know sometimes those numbers can be or are speculated to be slightly fabricated. I wouldn't be surprised if next year's WrestleMania, should all go right in the world, will be the largest in attendance in history. One thing I will put of note just before we move on to the next question is that New Japan Pro Wrestling, of course, the Wrestle Kingdom shows, managed to have, I think, between 12 and 13,000 fans over both nights in the Tokyo Dome, which, of course, has around an attendance of around 40,000. So that was around a third full, and, of course, everyone was there, enjoying Wrestle Kingdom. So I think it's at that time that perhaps WWE looked at it and said, well, in this sort of big venue, we can have some fans there. So it looks like fans are finally coming back. It's big breaking news of what we've got for the next 3 years of WrestleManias. I'm really happy with what they're doing with this year's WrestleMania. Like I say, we've got the same as what it should have been last year. Tampa Bay have not lost their opportunity. They will get it this year with the same sort of theme as well, that pirate theme going on. Will Kevin Owens really get to jump off that pirate ship? We'll have to wait and see if that will go down, or if someone will do that in the stadium. I wonder if that would be possible at this particular moment. Looking at it, it should be really exciting, and I think some people that maybe have lost opportunities from last year's WrestleMania will probably get them like they were meant to at this year's WrestleMania, which I think one of them will be Rhea Ripley. So mark my words on that as definitely a prediction I will be sticking with throughout until we get to the Royal Rumble season at least. But yeah, I think it's really exciting. I think it's great news, and I think fans will be coming back in some form of attendance. We just have to hope that the situation doesn't worsen. But I think, fingers crossed, there will be at least some fans in attendance come WrestleMania 37. Noob and Co next now with a host of questions here for us now on AskSCW. We're going to split them into 2 tweets for you now. The first 3 questions are: do you think Alexa Bliss can turn the women's division from face to heel or heel to face? Do you think Asuka will turn heel before Charlotte? Really good question, that one. What are your thoughts on the teams in the Dusty Women's Tag Team Classic? And thoughts on Kevin Owens being Roman's opponent at the Royal Rumble? 3 big questions there. Let's start then. Monday Night Raw, of course, is this evening. Asuka taking on Alexa Bliss. I'm really pleased this match has been put together. Of course, if people were checking out last week's Q&A, you will be aware of on YouTube that I did a Dream WrestleMania card, was one of the questions I had. Asuka versus Alexa Bliss was a match that I put on there because it's a match I really want to see. And like you say, it is fascinating of what can happen now with Alexa Bliss. I mean, the first question we have to ask is now, is Alexa going into the Raw Women's Championship picture? That championship, let's be fair, has been neglected in the last number of weeks. It certainly feels that since Charlotte has come back, Asuka and Charlotte have been fully focused on the Women's Tag Team Championships and not the Raw Women's Championship. So it's good to see that that championship is getting its prime focus hopefully back. Certainly with Asuka and Bliss, it's a big time match. The question you are asking is, can Bliss turn people from face to heel or heel to face? It certainly would be an interesting dynamic that people that face Alexa Bliss also would never be the same again. It certainly is a unique twist here and could be a fun element of what you want to do with the women's division. And like you say, if you want to have Asuka being the first one here, Asuka could be the one that turns heel on Charlotte Flair. Certainly would be an interesting dynamic and would provide interesting television. We've certainly seen Asuka versus Charlotte on the other side of Asuka being the face and Charlotte being the heel. That dynamic many times in the past. It would freshen things up if we had this match done again, that the roles were reversed. I'm also a little bit selfish in showing a biased point of view here. I do prefer Asuka as a heel. I did like her work in NXT, where she was kind of, you know, that longest reigning NXT Women's Champion, undefeated, that she almost, I don't want to say got complacent, but she knew that she could beat everybody, and the idea that someone had to beat her, that storyline was fascinating at the time, and seeing Asuka as that heel, and even as part of the Kabuki Warriors, I found that she was a very engaging character, an engaging person to watch in the ring. I think her in-ring style, she does very well as a babyface, don't mix my words up, but at the same time I would say as a heel, I find those matches, I'm just a bit more compelled and I'm more into them when I see her as a heel. The only thing I would say that counteracts this is that I think Charlotte Flair is the natural heel of the two, and people are not such a big fan of Charlotte Flair anyway, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think with regards to Raw tonight, Alexa Bliss cannot lose. I think that's one thing we have to look at it. I think that we could get a screwy finish to protect both people here. I think that could be something that might go down. It's interesting that this match has been put together because it does make you believe that this could be the actual championship picture going forward as we head in towards the Royal Rumble, especially if those Women's Tag Team Championships are not on the line. Charlotte Flair, of course, is going to be in the Royal Rumble match. They're going to want something for Asuka to do. It could be Asuka versus Bliss at the Rumble as well. So let's see what happens tonight. Should be interesting. I think it's certainly possible, and certainly is a great bit of fancy booking or suggestion from yourself there that could happen in the women's division as well. It certainly would give WWE this idea of being able to be creative of finding ways to turn people face and heel without actually just having someone just do a natural double cross. So there are ways this can be tweaked and be interesting, but also perhaps maybe it's a carbon copy of The Fiend. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, this is a match that I'm really looking forward to tonight on Monday Night Raw. As for the Dusty Women's Tag Team Classic, well, we know a few teams in there, and of course it's that standard thing where we've got some regular tag teams. We know, of course, we've got The Way with Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell, the long-term partnership of Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, of course as well, Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter will be together. We know a couple of other teams that have been thrown together. Of course, we've got the Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon team. We've got Toni Storm and Mercedes Martinez. It'll be interesting to see what other teams will be thrown together, and if it's maybe an 8-woman team. I know Bayley is interested, so it has got main roster attention that they want to be involved this with NXT. So it could be interesting if we get a team like that thrown into the tournament. I think it's exciting. I, as I've said, would love to see an actual tag team win this, especially for the women, because you have the opportunity to go for the women's tag team championships. I do think it would be, I don't want to say a waste, but I mean, if you have 2 single stars, you know, them going for the championships, I don't like the thrown together tag teams as much, but you need to do it. If you're going to do this classic, we don't have enough tag teams down there, but we have enough women to do it, and a lot of talented women, and maybe we could forge together 1 or 2 more tag teams. We will be touching more on the women's tag team championships coming up with this topic later in the video, so do make sure to stick around for that. But let's touch on Kevin Owens then actually now replacing Adam Pearce in the Royal Rumble. This is what I'm going to say about it. I was really interested in seeing Roman versus Adam Pearce at the Royal Rumble. I thought that it was going to be a fun match that was being thrown together. I think it would have been great storytelling rather than match. It was more angle, and I think that those matches with angles that Roman Reigns has done up to now, if you look at Clash of Champions and Hell in a Cell, in particular with Jey Uso, those matches were fascinating. The storytelling with Drew McIntyre was great as well, and the matches with Kevin Owens have been awesome as well. So basically, Roman has been great since turning heel, and everything is done. It's seemingly touched and it's turned to gold at this particular moment. I think with Adam Pearce, it could have been one of those moments, but one thing that I did feel, and I did suggest after Kevin Owens was, you know, written off TV, if you want, for a couple of weeks, was that after he was thrown off of that, you know, that sort of area in the Thunderdome where he went through the table, that a last man standing match would have been one of the major suitable match types that we would have had at the Royal Rumble. So as that's been suggested, and now that's the match we've got, I think it makes a lot of logical sense. What I would say is it does make a lot more fun from the creative standpoint that WWE, rather than just announcing 2 weeks ago that we've got a last man standing match at the Royal Rumble, Roman just having nothing to do, we've had some really interesting twists and turns in the storyline. It's kind of felt like something we would have got back in the 90s and early noughties, of not knowing what direction this is going to go from week to week, and that's really exciting as a fan, you know, aspect of it. So for me, I kind of really like it. I like the way it's twisted and turned. Am I a little bit disappointed with Adam Pearce? Yes, but I mean, there were some, you know, plot holes in this of saying that Adam Pearce didn't need to be in the match either. I mean, he is an official. He's not the GM, but he is the GM. And you turn around and say, well, you know, he could just take himself out of the match, and effectively that's what he's done. And he's used a loophole of ways he's found with that contract to get himself out of the match and Owens into the match. So all of it makes perfect storytelling. It makes logical sense. And yeah, I'm a fan of it. I think it's going to be really cool. I think it's fun. It's exciting. And let's be fair, at the Royal Rumble, Reigns versus Owens, last man standing, they had a great match at the Rumble a few years ago in that sort of hardcore environment for the Universal Championship. I think this is going to be similar. I think it's going to be awesome. It could be one of the best pre-Royal Rumble matches, you know, those single matches that we could have in Royal Rumble history. I really think that this has got all the boxes ticked, and I think it should be something very special when it comes to the night. 3 more questions from Noob and Co. Will we see some Impact Wrestling talent invade AEW at some point? What are your thoughts on Sasha Banks wrestling Reginald on SmackDown next week? And will Shayna Baszler declare herself at the Women's Royal Rumble match or go after the Raw Women's Championship? Well, let's quickly touch on the WWE stuff first, because Shayna Baszler, I think, could be summed up pretty quickly. If Bliss is in this position, as we discussed earlier, then Bliss could be the one going for the title. For me, at the moment, I would say, as much as I want to see Asuka versus Baszler in a really meaningful feud, at the moment, Baszler, I think, looks to be more directed towards the Royal Rumble. I think that seems to be the direction. If I had to guess at this point anyway, she seems to be in these programs with other people that are in the Women's Royal Rumble match. If you look at the likes of Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke have declared themselves in. The fact now we could have some friction with Nia Jax, who's also in the Women's Royal Rumble match. If Baszler was to go in that match as well, Baszler becomes an instant favourite to win it. And I think that from that reasoning alone, Baszler would make a lot of sense at this point to be put in the Rumble match. If for some reason she doesn't win it and Asuka is still the champion, then perhaps we could do this match between them two at either Elimination Chamber or perhaps even Fastlane, which I believe has been announced over the weekend will be taking place. So we look like we've got a couple of events between the Rumble and WrestleMania. I certainly don't see why this match wouldn't go down at some point, but I think the Rumble is better suited right now for Shayna Baszler, in my opinion. As Sasha Banks and Reginald, it should be a fun match. Reginald, he's an interesting character, isn't he? He can sort of flip around. He's almost like a Leo Rush kind of person who isn't getting in the ring. He sort of knows how to make himself a bit of a nuisance. Some would suggest maybe he's probably been the partner that takes away from certain matches, maybe in the past with Carmella. But it's a great way to build between now and the Royal Rumble. I don't expect Reginald to have any offense in whatsoever. I expect it to be some form of squash match. I think Sasha gets an easy victory. And it's building more between Sasha and Carmella, which is what that storyline needs to do. As a form of intergender wrestling, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of the connotations of what it represents, but what I would say is that if it's done and booked correctly, then certainly it can be done all right. There has been some fantastic intergender matches done in the past, and a lot of the female athletes that are involved in those matches, they want to be involved with them. So it comes down to everyone has a different side of whether it's their kind of thing or not. For me, I think if they're booked correctly, I think they can be done very well. As for Impact Wrestling invading AEW, I mean, you could argue technically it's already started with Don Callis, and now we've had the Good Brothers there as well, with Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, the Impact Tag Team Champions. They seem to have started out this super elite thing going on now, and could even be the new best friends of Kenny Omega. This could have been a stab at the Young Bucks. It does make you wonder, are the Bucks in here with the Good Brothers or Omega going forward, or are they not? I do wonder if we could be building towards a six-man tag team match at Revolution, perhaps Jon Moxley and the Bucks, if they are turned on by Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers and this continues, maybe they could be a team to go against, of course, Omega and the Good Brothers. That would be an interesting six-man tag. We've just seen a six-man tag at Impact's Hard to Kill, which was phenomenal, by the way. Really enjoyed that six-man tag team match and recommend it to anyone that hasn't gone and seen it as of yet. Will we see more Impact talent go there? I certainly think we are slowly building towards it. Rebellion is the next Impact show. Revolution is also the next AEW show. These seem to be the perfect pay-per-view names to start having some, mixed promotion matches going on. Deonna Purrazzo almost throwing out an open challenge that she will take out anybody and put them in the Fujiwara armbar after the show as well. I really want to see Purrazzo against Shida. I think that would be awesome. It certainly would benefit AEW at this point to have someone of Deonna Purrazzo on Dynamite each and every week. And certainly, Impact is benefiting from having, some of the star power of certain AEW stars go to their show. I certainly think that we will see more interaction as things go on. But at the moment, it seems to be baby steps. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think the baby steps is good because sometimes a lot of these invasion angles, they are rushed and they're finished within months. And then I think a lot of people look back at it and say, oh, this was done wrong. And how about this? If it's booked and done correctly, and particularly my head always comes back to the original invasion with WWE, WCW and ECW back in 2001, that could have gone on for years had it have been booked correctly. And it was clearly rushed, didn't have all its biggest stars. WWE was always booked as the strongest force. They had to more or less turn people from WWE to be on that side who had already put WCW out of business. There are ways that this could have been done and booked so much better when we look back at it. I think AEW and Impact don't want to make the same mistake. I think so far everything they've done has been perfect, and I'm happy to see it continue at the pace it's going. Mike, Italian Habs Mike, with our next question is now, and I said we'd come back to the Dusty Classic, didn't I? Two questions he's got for us now. Since the winners of the Dusty Rose Women's Tag Team Tournament are getting a shot at the Women's Tag Team titles, would it make more sense to move the tag titles to NXT? Second question got for us is, do you see the alliance between Finn Balor and the Undisputed Era playing out? A very interesting question indeed. But moving back, which ties into the first question, which we'll focus on first, is that it would make more sense, in Mike's opinion, for the women's tag team titles to move to NXT as the roster is deeper and would be better used. Do you think that if it happens and once everything is settled, that women's tag team titles could be defended against the UK women's teams as well? I really like the idea of NXT being more involved here. With the Women's Tag Team Classic, there certainly is one thing that can evolve from this. And like you say, it is more tag teams. There is certainly a more depth when you look at NXT. We've got more partnerships going on there. So it certainly makes sense to have those titles on NXT more often. I would like to see the next champions be from NXT. I want to see them the winners of the Dusty Tag Team Classic. That would be my personal preference if I could have it. What I would say is that I don't think the championships should move permanently to NXT, because we do have tag teams on Raw, on SmackDown. The roster is definitely not enough depth, in my opinion, but it certainly will give an excuse for people to say, let's take a tag team, let's take the team I want to win it. I want Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez to win that tournament. I want them to become women's tag team champions. Then if they go to Raw or SmackDown, or for example like the Riot Squad or Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke want to come to NXT for a week, or you've got so many teams in NXT, I think that would be awesome. As a permanent home for those championships, I would say that I think it's best that it's still on all shows. I like the idea that it can flip between. If anything, with championships, which I will come to at a later question, I think that champions should be on all shows, and I think there probably are too many titles in WWE. Some should be merged. I feel personally, I think that would be a better way. More champions, or less champions I should say, would give more importance to the people that do have championships, and the fact that they would be able to be on, say, Raw and SmackDown would give those people an opportunity to, really be something of a big deal. But perhaps right now, in the current situation of the world, as you say, perhaps that isn't the smartest move to do right now. Maybe we keep things as we do, and when things are better, maybe that's something that could be revisited as an idea, or certainly as a fantasy booking idea from me anyway, could happen when it comes to that time. But definitely one thing I would say is, which rises into that question, UK, of course, have a great depth of a women's roster. They have one of the strongest women's divisions in the entire WWE, and probably even in women's wrestling as well. But, the NXT, not just normal NXT, but the women in the UK are fantastic as well. And I'd like to see some teams formed, and I would like to see that, utilised and have them go for the championships as well. We've seen a number of UK talents move to the US NXT. You look now and see with Pete Dunne, the grizzled, young veterans there. There's many sort of people that have come over from NXT UK and stayed there on that brand. And there could be more that could come in future, perhaps even from the women's division. Toni Storm and Rhea Ripley, obviously not actually from the UK, but have been a part of NXT UK as well. They've also currently moved to the other NXT. So it certainly isn't, outside the idea of possibility. It certainly would be something that I'd be excited about. But I want to see the belts in NXT. I want to see NXT more involved with it, but I don't want to see those belts moved where they are solely represented only by NXT. As for Finn Balor and the Undisputed Era, this certainly is an interesting dynamic. I do feel that we will see a bit more with them going forward. The interesting dynamic I've got here is what are we going to get when it comes to the next takeover. We've got one on February the 14th, which I do think I'm going to make let's start a petition right here, right now, by the way. It should be NXT TakeOver St. Valentine's Day Massacre. I'm just throwing out there. That was awesome back in '99. We've not had one since. NXT loves a throwback, and it's just NXT TakeOver right now. Let's have St. Valentine's Day Massacre back. One thing that I think we're looking at a match at the moment definitely is a 6-man tag team match. Of course, we've got Pete Dunne, who seems to want to be after the NXT Championship. And of course, he's got Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. Of course, we have the Undisputed Era there. If Kyle O'Reilly is not fit to go, maybe Finn Balor takes the spot and teams up with Roderick Strong and Adam Cole. It certainly would be interesting if that was to take place. Or if Kyle O'Reilly is good to go, maybe it's Roderick Strong who's not in the lineup, and you've got the other 3 combatants. Or you could just have the UE and Balor takes on Karrion Kross. There's certainly different dynamics of the way it could go. One thing I would say is I do expect that there will be a bit more here, because Pete Dunne wants to be involved with the NXT Championship, and I think that is the real key here of this, which what links UE together, especially after the fact that we just had Kyle O'Reilly against Finn Balor last week. There definitely is that mutual respect going on as well. So there's lots of different ideas and lots of different twists and turns it can go. I'm excited to see where it will lead to. But yeah, I do think that we will have some form of alliance with Balor and the Undisputed Era, certainly for the next few weeks at least. Next question comes from Austin Whitley. It might be a stupid question to ask, but could 2021 be a big year for the Swiss Superman? Well, first off, there are no stupid questions here on AskSCW. I'm really glad this one came in, because Cesaro had such a big win this week and such a great match with Daniel Bryan. With the idea of Shinsuke Nakamura as well, seemingly getting a push, turning babyface, getting the old music back, which was awesome, by the way. Shin all of a sudden becomes like one of these outside favourites for the Royal Rumble, because he's getting the push at the right time. But there is an interesting twist with this, is that Cesaro, just a week later after Shin did well in the gauntlet, beat Daniel Bryan. Cesaro beat Daniel Bryan one-on-one in the center of the ring, and also was teasing friction with Nakamura of not coming to his defense the week previously. Does make you wonder if Cesaro and Nakamura is a long-term direction of what could be an epic match at WrestleMania one of these nights or something. It could be really exciting if that's put together, if they can keep the storyline going that long, certainly. But I think 2021, I know what I want, I know what I hope for. I hope it's going to be the year for Cesaro, because he's been held back for far too long. Cesaro's had those chances where he could get those pushes, and we thought it was going to happen, particularly in 2014, the first winner of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal being paired with Paul Heyman. We thought it was going to be the time for Cesaro. Didn't quite work out, didn't really connect together. He's been in multiple teams since. He's done great work, especially with the Bar. I've really enjoyed that. I've enjoyed his work with Shinsuke Nakamura as well. But I want to see Cesaro pushed as the guy that we know he should be or could be in the company. I think he definitely, as an in-ring style, he reminds me of someone that could be almost like a Kurt Angle type athlete. He's got that within him to, just go to different levels and put on 5-star performances. He can speak 5 different languages. He could be a real asset to WWE, and I feel the fact he's finally getting more time to be able to talk, express his personality in the last sort of year. Of course, he was the one that was more vocal, of course, between him and Shinsuke Nakamura as the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Now he's had time on the commentary table. I'm finding he's entertaining. I think he's getting his message over very, very well. I think hopefully this is the time it will happen. The only problem I have is that WWE pushes start and then pushes stop. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're building Cesaro up to lose to Nakamura and then Cesaro fades back, back into the background again. That's something that I fear could happen, because it could be just 1 or 2 months and then it's gone. But what I will say is that Cesaro, he's got all the keys, he's got all the tools. Why not? It's time to push Cesaro, in my opinion. I think he could be a top guy if given the opportunity. But if we're going to an old report, just before we move on to the next question, there was a report that came out a few weeks ago about, who creative thought that could do really well if pushed, who isn't being pushed already. Cesaro was one of those names, unanimously on that list. So I think hopefully, maybe, it could be the time, but I'm in the case of wait and see. Seeing is believing, so let's hope WWE actually do give him a big push. One thing I think that could really benefit him, and this will be my last point for you right now, is that the Royal Rumble match is key, and it can be a great starting point of building careers. I would like to see Cesaro as the journeyman in this year's Royal Rumble. Give him 35, 40 minutes in the Royal Rumble match. Have him eliminate some people. Give Cesaro that rub. I think it could really do wonders if Cesaro was to be that guy in the Rumble this year. Perhaps even along with someone like Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan loves to go these 1 hours in these matches. Maybe these two are early in the Rumble and they go all the way through to near the end or something. I think that would be awesome, particularly for Cesaro. Would be a standout moment in his career, certainly in the last number of years. And certainly that way it could propel him to that next level in WWE. Renier Porter, the next question now. You get to change all the top belts in any company. What company and what titles would you change? Great question, this one. And I must admit, with a lot of the companies, I'm quite happy who the top champions are in most companies. I think when you look at WWE right now, Roman Reigns, Universal Champion on SmackDown, Drew McIntyre, WWE Champion on Raw. These are the 2 top guys right now. This is your closest you've got to, say, like a Cena Batista or, Austin Rock. I mean, we're not at that level, of course, with these guys, but this is the closest you've got to having those sort of 2, superstars that are the stars in the company. They are the right champions right now on those shows, so I'm very happy with that. I look at AEW, Kenny Omega, he's stealing the show right now. He is, the star of things. New Japan, Kota Ibushi being on top there, certainly. I think his time has come and definitely needs a chance to roll with the championships. As for the women's championships in WWE, I would just turn around and say Sasha Banks I'm very happy with. Asuka I am happy with, but she hasn't had as much focus on that championship at recent, and I would say that if the focus isn't going to be on the championship, then the champion needs to change. So for me, I would say that she could potentially be one of them, and she's been a long-term champion. I definitely want to see her have a WrestleMania moment though, so it kind of falls hand in hand. but I would say that maybe that would be one championship that I could say would potentially be vulnerable. Shayna in AEW, I think her time is coming as well to lose that championship, I would say. I think the Doctor, Britt Baker, is the right candidate to take it over and then, can carry that championship for a number of, months in the company. Thunder Rosa is someone I want to see in that position, but unfortunately, I just think that Britt Baker, she is the person that was arguably going to be the face of that division. I think that she is doing some great heel work, and I think that she could help build some natural heel heat, and I think that sometimes you want to see a heel with that championship for a long time, or certainly for a number of months, because when the babyface wins, they get that big pop, that big moment. So for someone like that, maybe like Rosa or Shayna to win the belt back, for example, it would be great if Britt Baker was the one to hold that championship. As for then looking at Impact Wrestling, Rich Swann is one that I would say that I think could do with losing that championship in Impact. He's done a great work and he had a great performance at Hard to Kill, but what I would say is that for me, it's the one champion that at the moment hasn't connected as well from a top of the range standpoint. I certainly would like to see Moose as someone that I think could be the champion. I think he would be the right guy right now. It's either that, but I think also another likely direction that could happen, I could see Kenny Omega winning that championship. So it would be interesting if that was to go down, but certainly would be very exciting as well. Either of those two options I would be happy with. With the Knockouts Championship, Deonna Purrazzo for me right now arguably one of the best women's wrestlers in the world, and she's stealing it every performance. Thoroughly enjoyed the match with Taya Valkyrie. Every move means something, and in the link of the match, to the link of the story, to the link of the outcome, and that's very rare you get in a performer these days, and I think that's what makes her matches so fascinating to watch. So for me, Deonna Purrazzo is definitely one of the standouts, and certainly should be holding that championship for a long, lengthy time, in my opinion. But overall, I'd say I'm quite happy with a lot of the champions, but there are 2 or 3 there, as you probably would notice there, that I probably would switch around. But all in all, even with the ones that do have the championships, I'm quite content. I think that most companies have got the champions nailed on at the moment. Only thing I will mention, and I did say I would come back to this early in the video, is in WWE, I think there maybe are too many champions, and I think that it maybe at some point down the line would be great to unify the championships, because if you have, say, 5 or 6 champions in the company rather than Raw, SmackDown having 10 or 12 championships, it becomes a point where you kind of lose track of who's champion and what its worth is. I think it's better that you have like one world champion, that you have one intercontinental champion, maybe keep US championship as well, but one tag team champion, one women's champion. I think then it becomes a lot more meaningful at that point. Yes, you're not building as many stars at the same time. For example, you look at the women's division, Charlotte Flair is going to have 16 world title reigns at some point, so you could say, well, at least on the other show, someone else is being built up at the same time. But for me, I think it means more when you have that one champion. So for me, it's something I want to see further down the line, but certainly with the way things currently are, it's not something that I want to see right now. Last question this week coming from Straight Edge Josh, and who does the best Spanish fly at C4, excluding Mustafa Ali? I could give you 100 on this one. Literally, there are so many people that do a great Spanish fly. If you are 205 or under and you do a Spanish fly, there is a good chance that you do it very, very well. Unless your name is Sin Cara, of course. But no, even he did it well back in the day, to be fair. But one thing I will give a shout out to on this video is that in the last couple of weeks, there have been 2 athletes that have done Spanish flies that you think that it would not be possible to do. Keith Lee being one of them, and we've seen it previously with Dijakovic when he's had matches with him in NXT, have been unbelievable. But he did that with Drew McIntyre as well, and he made it look flawless and perfect. Moose did a great one on Hard to Kill as well. So there are superstars that are throwing them out there that you wouldn't necessarily expect. So this is a lot harder to pick. I'm really sure that Phoenix was doing this quite often in Lucha Underground and Prince Puma back in the day, of course, which is Ricochet. Those sort of athletes do an amazing job of that sort of move. So for me, they would be natural selections to go for that. But one I will give you, just because of the fact that I just can't believe he can do it, is Keith Lee. It just really makes him stand out as one of these sort of once-in-a-lifetime performers. It's one of those things that you think, wow, this guy can literally do anything. But that's all for me anyway. Thank you for watching Ask SCW this week. Hope you enjoyed the show as always. Make sure to subscribe or follow depending on where you're watching or listening. Thank you, by the way. I'm on 750 subscribers on YouTube. I'm really pleased with hitting that milestone. Thank you so much, you guys. It means a hell of a lot. Really am grateful for your support. So yeah, with the road to 800 starts here. So please share with a friend if you like the video. Then I really do appreciate if you hit the thumb up. And like I say, if you have subscribed, maybe hit the notifications bell and set it to all. You know when each time a video is released here on SCW. There are many great videos to check out from last week if you haven't already. 10 breakout stars to watch out for in AEW in 2021. As well as that, we've got Royal Rumble videos as well. 10 potential surprise entrants in the Rumble match. 5 superstars that are not currently on TV that could be brought back for the Royal Rumble. I'm really happy with these videos. I hope you guys have time. Go and check them out. I really do recommend it. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. One other appearance I made this past week as well was on Jonesy Chats Wrestling. I did the Raw review with him last week. If you get an opportunity, go and check it out on his channel. Definitely worth checking out as well. But that's all from me. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a good one. More videos will be dropping on YouTube in the weeks, so make sure to go and check that out. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a great day.